Hello, hello. This is Brad.
Hello, Brad. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I feel like I know you already because I've got like 380 tracks with your name on them. And
Good.
yeah, and we'll make it 400 with this new album.
Exactly. It's good. Lots of tracks.
Wonderful pianist Jean-Yves Thibaudet has a new album out, and you're taking a little time to tell us about it. So thank you for joining us, first of all.
Of course. Great pleasure, Brad. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, and I said that I feel like I know you, but this album is so personal, and there's so many wonderful stories wrapped up in all these little sort of musical bonbons, as they were. I want to hear some of those stories, but first of all, a belated happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you're one of the few people I've known who celebrate their birthday by giving a present to everybody else, which is what this album is. Where did the idea come from? I mean, it's entitled Carte Blanche. Obviously, it's for you to do what you want, how you want to do it. Is this something you wanted to do for some time, or
Yes.
did the record label approach you?
No, it's something I wanted to do for a long, long time. And I remember I've been asked or been thinking probably, I mean, as much as 10, 15 years, I don't know how many years, but many, many years. It was kind of a like encore. I mean, I was calling it like an encore album. All my favorite encore, all my favorite pieces. That was how it started. And I made a list. I started making a list many, many years ago. And the list was growing and growing with time, of course. And then it just never really happened. And then arrived this pandemic and things stop, and we are here at home. Everybody's at home, and I practice and I have all this time ahead of me. And we started discussing with Decca, and they said, we'd like to do some new albums with you. And I said, how about doing that encore album finally? And you know what? They were wonderful. They said, you know what? It might be exactly the right time. Yes, let's discuss that. And we started. And when we looked for the title, it was very funny. They had everybody had a different idea. They were great titles, this and that and that. And then suddenly, Dominic, the label manager, Dominic said, it's funny. He said, internally, we've called this project Carte Blanche just because when people ask me, I tell them, I gave Carte Blanche to Jean-Yves. He can do whatever he wants. And he said, why don't we actually call it? And it just came like that. And I said, that's wonderful. And we all decided that it was the greatest title. And now it seems so legitimate and so natural. Now, the story is it is Carte Blanche. I mean, I have to say, they give me complete liberty to choose the piece that I want, whatever I wanted to record. The only rule they give me that it had to be all new material. It couldn't be any of those 385 tracks that Brad. It had to be new tracks, had to be different. So I said, well, why not? It's a good challenge. I have plenty of material, enough to make a few recordings. So the challenge was to choose which one I would make. And then having all this time on my plate, it was beautiful. I was able to really reflect on it, which piece I wanted to do, then learn some new piece that I never had time to learn, but I really wanted to learn and play in that album, then transcribe new pieces, arrange new pieces. It gave me all this wonderful time, and I did it in Los Angeles, where I live, at the Colburn School in Zipper Hall, beautiful piano. It was just a dream. It was a dream situation. So I was going there. It was back in May. It's very recent. I would go there in the morning, record all day, come back home and sleep in my bed at home. So comfortable. It felt so natural, and it was really a work of love and fun. I had such a good time. And every single piece in this album, I have to say, nothing was asked for me to do. Every single piece is something I wanted to do. I love dearly, has a meaning to me. It's a tribute to a person. It reminds me of a situation, of a time in my life. It's really it's a perfect album for what we wanted to do at this point. It will remain as a very unique album for this time in the world.
I was surprised to read that you hadn't recorded any of this before, especially I'm thinking of like the Brahms intermezzo and the Franz Liszt piece.
You're right. Well, I've recorded so much of everything, but those particular one I've never recorded. We had to look like Liszt Liszt and Chopin, believe me, I had to really find, it was difficult to find something because I'd recorded so much and played so much. But no, those I'd never done. And the Brahms Intermezzo and the Liszt, but maybe even more the Brahms, I think is really almost one of my signature encore. I mean, I've played that piece, if I could remember all the plays in the world and the number of times that I played that piece as an encore after a recital or after a concerto, or, I mean, it just on and on. It always comes because I just love that piece. It just is such a gorgeous piece.
Yeah, you mentioned the Chopin, and you have the waltz on here, which it says in your program notes was like the first piano piece that you ever heard.
Yes, I think the first piano piece that I ever heard. My mother was playing the piano, and she was playing that piece, and I always and my sister too, and I always remember that sound is such. It's not a difficult like waltz. It's not difficult. Not too many notes in there. But it's so sweet, so tender, and it reminds me really of my childhood. I still have the old score with my mother notations on it, and it was important for me to have that piece in that album because it really means something. It reminds me of my childhood, and it's important. And I still play it sometimes as an encore. I haven't lately, but I will play it again. All the pieces that I play there can be performed as an encore. They're all perfect.
You have wonderful musical tributes on here to people, especially your teacher, Aldo Ciccolini. I wonder if you can tell the story behind the Schubert piece?
Yes.
Because it's remarkable.
Absolutely. It's a very unique story, yes. Well, I heard Aldo always play that encore, that beautiful piece, and I didn't know, and I told him what it is, and he kept saying, oh, it's a Schubert piece. I said, okay. And then one day I said, but what is it called? Where can I find it? What is it? And finally he told me the story, and the story is remarkable. It's Schubert went to a wedding of his dear friend, the Kupelwieser, and after the wedding, at the end of the evening, he wrote on the napkin that little theme, but just the theme, just the one note. Ti-da-di-da-di-da, just that little theme, he wrote it and he gave it to the bride. Then we forward, a few hundred, 150 years or some, and we're in 1943, back in Vienna, and Richard Strauss is having dinner at the Kupelwieser house in Vienna, and he sees that little napkin hanging on the wall, beautifully, of course, it's a treasure, and he looks and he said, what is it? And people say, well, this is a little piece, little theme that Schubert wrote for our great-great-great-great-grandmother. Oh, he said, my God, this is amazing. He said, would you allow me to look at it and maybe I can put it together in a piece and make a piece out of it? They said, of course. And he did it, and he wrote it. There's a manuscript that exists of it, and Aldo was able to see it, and he learned the piece many, many years ago. Now, the question was, as I kept begging, I said, Aldo, do you have a score? He said, no, I don't. I just learned it. I just know it. I don't have a score. Well, I said, that's terrible, because I really wanted to play the piece too. So years passed, and finally one day he found a scrap of a kind of a trash piece of paper that had scribbled on it this piece. I could hardly see it, but with his help, I wrote some more notes on it and kind of learned it quickly, put it in my head, and realizing that that's what was it now. I understand that it is I think it's published now. They did publish, which is a great thing, because it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. And it's done with great style. I mean, Strauss did it in the Schubert, very classical, very Schubertian style, up to the modulation just before the recap, where he put like his little signature, like a little oops, it's a little chord there that is very, very Strauss. And then suddenly goes back to Schubert. But it's a very, very touching piece, and I really wanted to have it in this album. And I played it many times. Now that Aldo is not here with us, I feel that we need to play this piece more, and I always think of him when I play it.
Yeah, and you also have that wonderful Love's Greeting by Edward
Yes,
Elgar.
Salut d'amour. Well, that's another piece that Aldo used to play. That transcription doesn't exist. Everybody know the piece for violin and piano and some other arrangement. Now, this is Aldo loved the piece, and he many years ago arranged it just for the piano. He just plays at the piano basically, and I just. When he died, I realized that was one of my favorite pieces that I heard from him. It reminded me so many moments that I wanted to play it, and I just basically just took a piece of paper and just took it as a note. I just wrote it note by note. I listened back and back and back and again to his performances that I could find, and I came up with as close as I could. And then I just played now with all my heart and my love. But it's a great piece, really.
You open with something that touches on your experience in film soundtracks. You've done a lot of soundtracks and pieces of music that are related to film. You have this suite from Pride and Prejudice, which is lovely, lovely music. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that.
Oh, sure. Well, Pride and Prejudice was a movie, the soundtrack that was very, I think, important in my career, and I think it touched millions of people that I would have never touched just with my regular concert and CDs and whatever. That's the beauty of being able to play on a soundtrack, because classical music is still not everybody has access to it, or people don't know about it or are afraid of it. It's just so many things. So when you're able to play in a score that is so successful, millions of people can hear it. Then they research with your name, and it happens so often. I play a concert and people will come after the concert and say, "Oh, we discovered you in Pride and Prejudice. We love your work. It's beautiful." And then they just see my name in their town and they come. They have no clue what I'm going to play. They just come because I'm the pianist from Pride and Prejudice. And I love that. And then those people are hooked up to classical music and to other things, other experiences. And I think it's so beautiful. So I wanted to include that because it was nominated for an Oscar. Then 2 years later with Dario Marianelli, he did the music, and I performed for Atonement, and that actually won the Oscar for the best soundtrack. So it's a very special part of my life. So I went to ask him. I said, "Dario, would you write, please, a solo piano suite for me from Pride and Prejudice? You choose the moments, you choose, and obviously you put it together. And if you can do that," I said, "I'll put it in my album." And I decided even that it would start the album, because I think it's a very special signature piece, kind of unique. So this is a world premiere of this piece that everybody knows, so many people know, but this is now organized, just arranged just for solo piano. And it shows that the music of the film, great music can survive without having the movie with it. You don't need to see the movie. It's just great music by itself. And I'm happy that I could include it here.
It's wonderful. And, as you say, it's sort of a gateway to your classical recordings as well. You've worked in so many different genres. You've done film music, you've done jazz. I'll say that your opera transcriptions were a bit of a gateway for me because I had an opera background, and I started listening to those. But what is it that drives you to seek out these different kinds of genres? Some pianists would be content just to rest on their concerto laurels, as it were, but you seem to be always looking for something new.
I'm a very curious person in life, in general, for everything. And I think it's the same with music. And I believe that all music is interesting, and there's only good music and bad music, as Duke Ellington used to say. And it's true. There's so much fantastic music, and I learn so much from it. I get inspired. So I'm always up there ready to start a new experience or try a new project. And I believe in those also. I also love to meet with artists from different fields of music. It doesn't always, I think we can just enrich ourselves so much. And I think it's so interesting for the audience also to see how two brains that are wired differently can work together, what they can come up with. I find that completely fascinating. And so I've always done as much as I could. As you said, soundtracks, I like to play for singers, chamber music, jazz. I mean, everything is always great. Iron Zigman, the wonderful composer, wrote for me Tango Manos, which is a concerto in the style of tango, which is a terrific piece, and I had so much fun learning it and playing it, and we still play it very often. So all of that gives me, it's what keeps me excited and going on. I mean, I think the format of the piano recital is so old and so cliche that I think we need also sometimes to do something a bit different. And when you think of it, if you go back to the time of Liszt, for example, Liszt was a very modern person, and Liszt was performing when those days there were no recording, there were no radio station, so people could only listen the music live and like in salons and concert hall, wherever they could go, but it was very select. And that's why he wrote all those arrangements of symphony, Beethoven symphonies, Wagner's operas. He took all these famous themes from operas and he would transcribe them for the piano. For some people, it's the only time they ever heard an opera, and they will never hear it again in their life because they were not going to the opera. So I think there's a tradition for that as well. And I think I'd like to be one of those modern kind of person in my time. And now, in our century, there's so much more we can do with it. And that's what I'm really interested in. And I have quite a few projects coming up in the future. I can't really speak about them today yet, but I think there'll be some really interesting. And they're all about collaboration. I think collaboration with other artists, other musicians, I love doing that. That's what gives me now the excitement and it just gives the creativity. It just opens so many doors.
Well, you have the sort of the echoes of some of your collaborations on this recording, especially with Renee Fleming, who does an interview with you. That wonderful transcription of "When You Wish Upon a Star." You know, that's a song that we all know, and we all hear in our hearts. But I have to say that it really got to me listening to it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it's a very, very touching, and it's funny. As the album just came out, one of my very dear friend here in Los Angeles got it, and she wrote me a text like, I don't know, an hour later. She said, just listening to the entire album, she said, love it, and she said number 21 made me cry. And I immediately looked and said, what is number 21? And it is what it is When You Wish Upon a Star. It is a very touching, I think it has a place in everybody's heart. The story with that is that we did PBS. We were part of a beautiful PBS program for New Year's Eve called United in Songs, the Resilience of American People. A fabulous program that was giving to the world. And Renee was performing in it, and I was performing Gershwin Concerto, the last movement. And then, since we're such close friends and we love to collaborate together, we said we'd do something together. And she came up, we've done so many things together that we had to find something kind of new that she hadn't recorded recently. And actually, she just did a Disney album, and she offered to do that piece. And I said, oh my God, that's really fantastic. Why not? I had no clue what to do with it. I was so shocked. I said, okay, sure. So we asked Jesse Kissel to do an arrangement for solo piano with Renee and me, and then that was our starting point. Then we started changing things around. She wanted to move the interlude there, do this there, and but it was a beautiful arrangement. We loved it. We did it, and then after that, I came back home and I was stuck with that piece in my head, and I was like, I love this piece. I want to play this piece, and I was at the piano at home having all this time, and I just played through it every day almost. I was playing. I said, I'm going to make an arrangement of this piece just for piano so that I can play it for myself and for my friends. And this is how it came about. And it took me all this month to work on it. It was quite difficult to rewrite the piece, incorporate the line of the singer, of course, and make it work at the piano with some flourish there and there, and some just fun. And I played with a few friends that I could see during the pandemic, and everybody loved it. And then I worked more on it, and I said, okay, I'm going to put that in the album. It was a little bit random, but it just, and I said, okay, I love it. I'm going to put it in the album. That's it. I want to share it with the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that so much. I love how Renee Fleming says your album is a concert of desserts.
Yes, she's right. She was so generous to give her time. We had like an hour and a half at her home in Washington, and I think it's so much more interesting than liner notes that you can find on Wikipedia. Just go and Google anything, you find everything. This is a discussion, two artists speaking about music, and she asked me questions. I speak about what I like and what it was very. I think it's very personable, and again, it makes this album even more personal, intimate, and unique in what it is.
Pianist Jean-Yves Thibaudet's new album is called Carte Blanche. It's from Decca Records. I want to thank you, sir, for joining us and talking about some of the music on this recording here on FM 81.
Thank you so much, Brad.